Welcome to the Washdown podcast, episode 90. And tonight, James and I are talking with Tabitha and Cory Parrot. They have a great story. We had a great time making this episode, and I hope you have as much fun listening to it as we had making it. So, without further ado, here is episode 90 with special guests Tabitha and Cory Parrot.
I'm surprised you didn't have like a little audience outside, just like peeping through the helicopter.
I was like, just come on out. I was telling my partner, I said, come on out if you want to. Oh yeah, I might be out. What are you doing?
I'm not going out there with that lame ass.
Come on, do a guest spot.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Tabitha, Cory,
yes.
welcome to the Washdown podcast.
Thank you.
We are very, very happy. So yeah, I had reached out to you, Tabitha. God, I've known you, like 9 years, 10 years now?
Whenever you started the hospital.
9 years? God damn.
Oh.
You getting old, buddy.
That whole thing of getting old, it's more and more these days.
Back before we were both medics and life was easy.
That EMT life.
So yeah, guys, welcome. We'll start off, just introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about you. No time limit.
Okay. You want to start?
No.
No. Well, I'm Tabitha Parrot. I am in EMS. I have been a paramedic for 6 years now. A little over 6 years. I was an EMT for a few years before that. EMS, I call it kind of my second life, because before that it was all about agriculture. I was going to be a vet. That's what I was going to do growing up. I spent high school and college working outside, working for vets, taking care of cattle, and then I had a life-changing experience. My brother was in a motorcycle crash. That was in 2011. That was June 13th of 2011. And he was on his way to my house that day, and that day I decided I wanted to be a paramedic. So that's it. That's the story.
Wow, that was riveting.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
A lot of detail.
Yeah, it's a little different than the last time we talked.
Well, there are very many layers to that story. There's a lot of things that went into me wanting to be in EMS. He was injured very, very significantly. He lost his right leg completely. He had open fractures. It was the most, to this day, the most traumatic injuries that I have seen on a patient that lived. And he did live. He was in the hospital for 4 months, and he ended up coming home. But life as we knew it was over. That was it. And I remember when we were in the hospital, people telling us that we would always have the time before the crash and the time after the crash. We would always talk about that as a family. And we do. We'll say, well, before the crash and then, in the hospital, and we refer to things in that time of life. And looking back, it was so formative for who I am as a person and what I have done in EMS and the reasons that I got in EMS, and it shapes the care that I give. And it's not about my brother. My brother was the star player in that part of life, but it's about me. It changed my story significantly, my whole family's story, and I am thankful in a way that we went through that, because I wouldn't be the person that I am without that. It steered me towards this field, and I have found so much passion for this field, and I love it. I work at a somewhat rural agency. We do a lot of long-distance transports. We have a lot of medications, lots of tools. We get to do so many really incredible things for patient care. I worked at a hospital, level 1 trauma, in a large city before that for about 5 years. And there's been a lot of ups and downs in between. So that's kind of me. I have my husband, and we have 2 boys. They are 8 and almost 11, and they are very busy boys. They keep us going when we're not at work. So, your turn.
Which isn't very often.
Which is not very often.
So, Cory Parrot, grew up in West Central Missouri. Graduated from high school. Went to the Army. Did just a couple days shy of 7 years in the Army. spent a lot of time in the Army, a lot of time gone. Did a year in Korea, came back, spent a couple of years in Oklahoma, went to Alaska, and then on to Afghanistan from Alaska. Came back from Alaska, got out of the Army 2014. Tried to go do some cop work. They're like, we don't want you yet. So I matured a little bit, grew a little bit, worked in a factory for a couple of years. I was like, holy smokes, they're getting ready to lay me off. There's 25 people laid off below me. So I was like, well, this isn't really going to work. So I was like, well, I'm going to just try to go to college, start the GI Bill. I could draw on unemployment and the GI Bill and make enough to live. So at that time I had both boys. So started the application process again for the agency that I currently work for. Got in. It's just kind of all been. That's all it's been from there. It's been hit the ground running. And all I ever want to do is be a cop. My grandpa was a cop. The only sheriff, if you hear him tell it, or if you got to hear him tell it, he's the only sheriff's deputy in the whole county, 39 taverns. Just him. In his, 67 Chevelle. Got a picture of it somewhere, but, yeah.
That's a badass cop car right there.
Yeah. So so that was that's what everybody knows him for. It's what everybody knew him for. And when my dad passed away this last year, I met up with the sheriff that he worked under. Met up with this lady, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And so I stopped by her house. I haven't stopped by to get pictures yet, but I stopped by there in a work capacity one time. And so all I ever want to do is be a cop. So here I am living my dream.
How'd you guys meet?
Oh man,
At work.
We met on a crash scene.
So yeah.
Were you guys actually doing your jobs, or just too dumbfounded with each other?
I was doing my job.
Yeah.
Promise you.
We have different perspectives on that day.
She was standing there with her hands on her hips.
Well.
Oh, she was doing the paramedic thing.
Yeah. I was the.
You guys go over there and do something. Yeah.
And I was the second unit. So what do you do as a second unit? You know, it's like, wow, shoot. What can I do for you guys?
Damn, would you look at that?
Yeah. So usually if I call anybody when I'm working, I always block my phone number.
Oh,
and I'm
gosh, he's going to get romantic.
Yeah. So I always block my phone number so nobody can call me back. I don't want a bunch of yahoos having my phone number. So I was like,
that's fair.
I'm not going to unblock this one. Called her. She didn't answer. So I texted her. I was like, yo, I got that info you need.
I have the screenshot of the text.
God.
Hey, it's Cory.
And then I called him back because I was like, oh, he must be interested. We have a conversation. He was every bit of law enforcement you could possibly be. And I was like, he is not interested in me at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyways.
Very professional. But we worked a couple more.
I made her stand in the rain.
He did make me stand in the rain one time.
Soaking wet.
Outside of his car window, waiting for him to write down a number for me or something for some patient that I was taking care of. I don't know. Can you ask that officer for blah, blah, blah? Oh, yes, I absolutely will. So I got to his car, and it's raining.
Not just like...
Oh, it's raining.
It's raining.
And I was like, it's fine. You're fine. You can... And the rain's coming in his car.
Good cops don't get wet, hungry, or cold.
The rain's coming in his car. So he's... Oh, let me write this down. He rolls his window up. And I'm like, it's fine. Take your time. What? So, I mean,
so
after...
we're going to cause a divorce here on this podcast. She'll be like, you know what?
To give you a timeline, that night, he had me on Facebook. So I knew he was serious.
Oh.
Yeah.
For work purposes,
yeah.
just in case,
Yeah. Keep those communication lines.
If AT&T goes out, you still got...
You know,
still got Facebook.
Person that might let us down. So got to keep those interagency relationships healthy.
It worked.
We don't talk about our relationship either.
Yeah, I think there for a while I was like the like the inner, like
I'm sitting over here wondering what he's gonna say.
No, like the interagency, it's like the liaison.
Something like that.
They made it up.
Yeah,
it was made up.
My coworkers still to this day don't think he likes them.
I don't. If you're listening, I don't. Come to my house and fight me.
When he works, crashes, or anything, he doesn't socialize.
I don't have time. I have work to do.
So if he gets up in the ambulance, if he's standing there, he's probably not going to talk to you, and that is translated.
Or I'm going to make fun of you.
You know what, though?
Also possible.
I applaud that, though, because I think there's a severe lack of professionalism.
There very much is.
I actually applaud that, so good job.
That's a very good point.
Thanks.
We talk about that actually a lot.
Yeah.
Professionalism is a lost art in our field.
It absolutely is 100%.
Fuck that.
If there's time to lean, there's time to clean.
It's true.
Now, you guys, decently early in your relationship, you guys had a pretty good test. I think you decided to try and die.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I didn't know we were going to go
PG.
there.
Continue.
Yeah.
All right.
So my heart stopped. And I've got a little pacemaker here that I keep very close to my heart.
There's no other place to put it.
Do you want to hear the whole story about what he
Yeah,
had
yeah,
to
yeah,
say?
yeah,
Yeah. This is my favorite part. So I had gotten up. I was getting ready for work. It's 5:30 in the morning. He was asleep. He had worked until 11 the night before. And I was getting ready to go to the hospital. I was still working in the hospital at the time. I didn't feel...
Not all the time, but...
I did not. I kept... Every time I'd stand up, I got dizzy. Oh, I didn't feel good. Didn't feel good. And I was trying to power through it. And I sat down on the vanity in the bathroom to try to put my makeup on. And I'd put some foundation on and it would sweat off. I was like, okay, something is not right.
God, I got drunk last night.
Oof.
She did, though. That's the thing. They had Galentine's night, and she's all half-cocked.
I didn't get
whenever I got home
drunk.
from work. I don't know. There was a couple empty bottles of rum chata and an Angry Orchard sitting on my nightstand.
I don't really know which version of the story you're...
No, continue.
Ma'am, you were medically incapacitated.
So I didn't feel great. I was moving on with my day, and I thought, okay, if I could just get off of this vanity and just sit down on the edge of the bathtub or somewhere, so, get myself together. And I stepped down off the vanity. I went to turn, and that's about the last thing I remember. And I face planted, and it was a very small bathroom. And I hit the...
I was paying $450 a month for this apartment.
It was a little...
Maybe $500.
It was a little bit of a dark time in our...
No, it wasn't. It was good.
Yeah, it was a small, very, very small bathroom. Not a lot of room.
Intimate.
I face planted into the toilet seat. I broke the toilet seat off. And I had...
You didn't break the toilet seat off.
I broke something.
Your teeth.
I definitely broke my face. I had pieces of teeth everywhere. Blood everywhere. I remember looking at my watch when I was stepping down. And when I woke up, which I'm thankful that I did, it had been 6 minutes. So I lay there for 6 minutes, unconscious. When I woke up and got my bearings enough to look back at my watch, which I did immediately, I was like, oh. And I was shaking, just horrible. And I reached up to my face because it hurt. And I had pieces of teeth and blood and my nose. Oh, I smoked my nose. And I was in bad shape. And I got up. I don't know. I could have yelled for help probably, but I got up and I stumbled in to wake him up. I needed help. I was crying. I was distraught. I knew my teeth were busted off again. And when I say again, I mean, it happened before. You see, there's a very special time in your life. It's called paramedic school. And you leave all of the brain cells that you do not need before, and you hope that they're there when you get done. And you only use the brain cells needed to get through the paramedic program. That's it, the end. And that's what I did. And so what I did when I passed out before is I woke up, thankfully. My dog was laying on top of me, frantic because I was dead for a minute. And I woke up. And I was like, oh, I better go get checked out. So I went to the station and put myself on the monitor. And mind you, I was in paramedic school, so I was pretty good.
You're qualified for
I
this.
was pretty good.
Expert.
I was like, oh, that's normal sinus. So I didn't see anything wrong. But my teeth were broken, so I went and got those fixed. And then I proceeded on with my life. So I was fine then. But then it happened again, and I was like, okay, we better get it fixed this time. So I asked my now husband. He was my boyfriend at the time. We hadn't been dating very long. It was
nearly a year.
Yeah, less than a year, 10 months, which isn't very long. But I asked him if he would mind taking me to the hospital. And he said that was fine, but could we stop so he could get a coffee first? And I was like, that is fine. We did that.
I needed gas, too. I needed gas for my truck.
Yeah, it's fine. But we got donuts and coffee.
Did you bill her at least?
Yeah. My teeth at this point weren't fitting together right. Something was wrong with my jaw, my front teeth. The tooth that I had fixed was shoved back, and my teeth weren't. Things were not good. They were not good, and my face was in shambles. But we got to the hospital, and the doctor said,
"Hold on, whoa! You're missing a very, very, very." Okay, never mind. Don't say anything. That's fine.
Sounds like you're missing a very important part of the story.
"Can you edit this?"
No.
He was terrified when I came stumbling and crying that I was going to tell him I was pregnant. That's
reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
You can
Child out of wedlock.
You can see
Come on.
the details of this story will
Lack of professionalism. We just talked about
yeah.
this.
Yes.
The details of this story will explain to you how he wasn't sure about me yet. All right, I'll take you to the hospital, but do you mind if we get donuts and coffee first? That's fine. I get that. But thank you. But I don't have another ride
Well,
right
he's
now.
a cop. He's got to get a donut to start his day.
Yeah. So we got on down the road. We got to the hospital. The doctor checked me out. He's like, hey, you've got a prolonged QT. You've got a couple of weird things on your EKG. We're going to keep you. We're going to keep you in the hospital. And that blew my mind. I couldn't believe he was going to admit me.
I mean, we needed to fix the face, too.
Well, I just needed my face fixed.
We're not there yet.
Ugh. I just need my face fixed. It wasn't going to be a big deal. But they kept me for 6 days, and they ran every test known to man. They made me do the stress test. We did EEGs and EKGs multiple times. They come in the middle of the night to do EKGs, wake me up, stick me with needles, all kinds of awful things. And the worst one, MRAs. It was awful. All my tissues were fine. All my vessels were fine. Everything looked fine. The worst one was the tilt table test.
Ooh.
When they did the tilt table test, they told me, they put pads on me, and I said, well, what are we going to do if it stops again? And they were like, well, we'll get it started. It'll be fine. I said, and
You're the second guest who's had an issue with the tilt table.
Oh, I had a significant issue. They told me I set a record, so if your other guest said that, they were wrong. I'm the one that has the record. In under 3 minutes, my heart stopped again. They told me to just let them know how I was feeling and to just talk to them. So they tilted me back to 70 degrees, and I lay there for a little bit, less than 3 minutes. My arms strapped down to this table, and I'm looking around, and I said, I don't feel good. And I got to where, when my heart stops, since it's happened a couple times, I can tell you how it feels. My speech starts to go, everything starts to go, and it's like somebody's just putting their hands over my head, and I can't see, and I can't control my body, and it's awful. And I looked sideways, and I was like, I'm running out of words. And I saw that my heart had gone down to 28. And that was the lowest I saw it. And then I went unresponsive. And I woke up, and they were sternal rubbing me, which hurts. If you haven't been sternal rubbed before, it hurts.
See, I feel like in EMS, just like they have to get tased.
We should have to be sternal rubbed.
Yeah.
I have been. They sternal rubbed me. They smacked me in the face. Sweetie, we need you to wake up.
Yo, bitch, I'm trying.
It was awful, and I just Brady down to a stop. So I don't know what they were gonna do with those pads. I have no shockable rhythms present. So that thank you for putting those on. It's a good show of support. But
They're the old show code.
Yeah,
Hollywood.
we're gonna precordial thump you. Okay. So which they might have. I don't know. I was dead. So that night, Now, mind you, my face is still in disarray, and my teeth are broken. I look like I came from a suspicious place. And Corey had been supposed to work, but he came up that night. I was very pleased that he came up that night. And he brought his computer with him. He was working on stuff next to my bed. He's sitting there, and the cardiologist comes in the room late that night to talk to us, kind of give us the results and whatever. I know the results. And he sits down, and he's just very solemn. He's very bedside manner, just tells us what's going on. This is blah, 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 blah. Your heart is doing this. You're going to get a pacemaker tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm trying to absorb all this information, and I hadn't looked at him. He's kind of sitting over
It's
here.
not like you're getting an augmentation.
No.
Like you don't have a choice.
Fine.
Like you're getting one.
It wasn't an optional. Yeah, it was not an optional procedure. So he's sitting over here to my left, and I had not looked at him through the cardiologist talking to us, and we're sharing this together. Supportive couple, we're sharing this, bearing this burden together. And the cardiologist finally walks out, and I got little tears just starting, and I'm like, just like taking it all in. My teeth still don't fit together, so what's going on?
I had trouble making eye contact with her that week because it was so bad.
It just gives me It was real bad. So I look over at
I'm
him.
a horrible.
You don't even know
person.
how horrible. Wait.
Hold
I
on.
looked over at him.
Wait, there's more.
To just kind of see his reaction, and he's reaching towards me with his hand, which at first I thought he was reaching to take my hand, to like hold hands and support me, and it was here, can you do this? It was like this, and I was like, and he shakes my hand, and he goes, "It's been real nice getting to know you and your family." and he doesn't even break expression, and my mouth hung. I already had tears, and the problem, I ended up married to him, so apparently I go with it. I laughed. Laughter is my stress response sometimes, and I was reeling from the information, and my mouth is hanging open, and I was like silent laughing with tears running down my face, and I'm just like, and he just sits there, just like this, stoic. So I got a pacemaker the next day. It was rough.
Did he show back up?
He did.
I didn't even leave.
You didn't leave.
And I was supposed to work that night too.
He was. And they took me into surgery like 3 hours late. It was awful. And then when I came out of surgery, I was screaming. And when he came, I don't do good with anesthesia, it turns out. And when he came to the recovery room, I saw him and I was like, "You're supposed to be at work!"
She makes that face every time.
I was
she tells
so
the story.
distressed that he wasn't at work because they needed him.
I will say, probably the most memorable. So her sister went and got like just like some like tank tops and like a sports bra, just like restore a little bit of her dignity.
I had no dignity.
And like some shorts, and her lips were so dry.
Try to make me feel pretty.
Yeah, her lips were so dry. Well, she's not like got a mirror in front of her, and so she has like this chapstick.
Gloss.
It's like
I thought it was lips.
It was like just like chapstick. So she's like all chapped up or whatever, and she just like smears it all over. And this stuff is as red as this chair. And she's got it looked like she let her niece put the lip.
But nobody told me.
It was like chapstick brand lipstick, and like
nobody told me.
So a little
she looked like a
Ledger
clown.
in the Dark Knight.
Yes,
and I was just, and I was pale. I had no makeup, no mascara, nothing, broken teeth, and I'd smile.
Face only a mother can love.
Awful. He didn't love me at the time. He liked me, but he didn't love me.
Not true.
We've been through a lot, but he's still here. So
in all fairness, Corey, what was realistically looking back on it now, going through your mind with all that? Was it the what the fuck did I get myself into, or was it
I thought you were going to ask what made him love me.
No, I was like, man, we're here at the hospital. Like they're gonna figure it out. Like we're not gonna leave till they figure it out. Like I didn't have like any like, oh my gosh, this is my life. Like. Anymore, like I wasn't gonna be like, I knew she wasn't going to be wheelchair bound. Like, I knew that she was like there with professionals. I had complete faith in the professionals that were.
He is practical to a fault. What are you going to do? Oh, that's a good point. What? Nothing. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's not sustainable to just check yourself out AMA.
That wasn't an option.
So I was like, pay for medical insurance?
Just figure it out.
Like,
it'll be fine.
I wouldn't. I guess I just. Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever asked you that.
No, that's a good question. I like that one. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're there. We're got some of the best doctors, at least in the state. But you know, why not get it taken care of? Like, I put a lot of faith in them, I guess, and didn't think about it much.
I mean, that's fair though. Like,
well, and we have a pretty strong language of sarcasm in our relationship. That's just who we are. We're cynical. We're sarcastic. Sometimes to the point where we have to go, okay, can you be serious for just a minute? Because we will go to the fault. And there was a time in the hospital when my sister, my brother-in-law, my family, my nieces were there all over me. There was so many people that came and supported me. I had flowers all over the place. I had so many people checking on me, which was wonderful.
I remember I walked in, I was like, go!
Oh! yeah. It was rough. But there was a time that there was all kinds of commotion going on. My nieces were on my lap, and I was sitting there thinking about what was going on. And nobody in the room was paying attention to me except for him. And that is one thing that sticks out in our relationship. I'm not sure that I probably ever told you that because we don't do sappy. We just don't do that. But that is one thing that sticks out to me. It's kind of maybe a top 5 moment that he was paying attention to me and everybody else was like, we're fine. Everything's good. We're going to stay positive. We're going to figure this out. And I just needed like a little bit of quiet. And there was no quiet. And I had just a tear. And he just came over and nobody else even realized that I was having that moment because there was too much commotion. But he did. He didn't talk to me about it. He didn't say anything. He just moved where he was in the room and sat where he was closer to me. And we just went on. But that's part of the dynamic of our relationship too. You will go just to the ends of cynicism and smart ass talk. And then when we need each other, that's what's there. And that was what was there in that hospital. So it was a very rough time in my life, a little bit of a rough time in our relationship. But not because we didn't deal with it properly, just because we weren't sure how we were going to deal with it yet.
Well, that's why I'm curious. Like, you guys are already like 10 months. Is that like, hey, we're still here, so clearly we like each other. We probably love each other, but we're still getting like now we're learning we're fine tuning each other, and all of a sudden it's like, yo, bitch, guess what? Here's something new. Like, how do you like in a when you find your groove? And then your groove has changed. How did you guys adapt to that?
And something else about the hospital is that was the easiest part. Because when I came home from surgery, we were getting ready to move. And we were just moving in together. And I was on a restriction. I couldn't lift over 10 pounds for a month. And I went through, and I don't talk about this either. Ever. But I went through a significant solid year or more of some really bad depression moments, dark, sometimes pulling the curtains, laying in bed, crying under the covers. He'd say, you want to go to the gym? And I'd just start crying for no reason. And after some research and kind of looking into it, I have learned that sometimes when you go through a heart surgery, you suffer from anxiety, depression, things that are completely different than anything you've ever been through. And I was trying to learn how to deal with that with someone that it was still a fairly new relationship.
That's going to knock on the intimacy too. Like
it knocked on everything. And we have our boys. We came into this relationship. He had a couple boys to come into, and so I was learning how to be. I don't have any biological kids of my own. I was learning how to be a stepmom. I was learning how to be a good partner. I was learning a lot of things as far as us goes, and trying to figure out what was going on with me. And I had to be off work for 3 months, which was absolutely miserable for me. I don't know how to not work, and I hated it. It was rough. As far as how did we navigate it, How did we navigate it?
One day at a time.
Patience.
Yeah. It was rough, but it was also nice to have you at home quite often, more than usual.
It was nice to be at home. It was nice to be at home.
Tricked.
I think giving each other a lot of grace was the biggest. Is every day the biggest way that we maintain. We are a pretty unique relationship, but relationship troubles are not unique to us. Everybody has their own brand of unique, and for us, it is our schedules. It is the challenges of our jobs and our different positions, the ways that we feel when we come home from work, the things that we say to each other when that energy was probably meant for someone else, that negative energy. We absorb a lot of him, probably more than me. He absorbs a lot of negativity that I bring home, that I won't display at work. I think that's what I do probably more often than not. That's a bad habit that I have. And I come home and I vent, and I am tired and I'm grumpy and I'm trying to decompress from everybody needing me at work and everything that went on. And it is sometimes, I don't always deal with it very well. That's for sure.
What's usually your thought process when she kind of comes home like that?
Listen, I'm like a very like, sometimes I'll meet her where she's at. Sometimes I'm ready to go fight.
Today he said, let's just go fight.
Yeah.
Let's go find somebody to fight.
Let's go find somebody to fight. I don't advocate that.
Yeah. I totally advocate that.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably in our fields, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That would have been all right. And you know what? You fight somebody and just get it all out of your system.
Yeah. And it's over and done with.
Yeah.
Shake hands afterwards and, agree to disagree, or somebody changes their ways.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just kind of brushed off, let her decompress. I mean, sometimes, it's like, well, yeah, you've been gone for 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 days of this week, and it's like you're bringing all that crap back here to the house, and I don't know. I probably meet her where she's at more often than not, and instead of probably showing her the, understanding, I could probably do a lot better, but I don't.
But so could I.
I don't. So, I usually meet her where she's at, which I don't advocate. Probably waste some energy on negative stuff, but I don't know. I don't take anything personally. Like, you have to really hurt my feelings for me to take it personally. Like, I've got pretty thick skin, and it is what it is.
There's not very many there's not very many relationships that could, I don't think, that could last through the things that we put ourselves and each other through. Because the fields that we have chosen are not easy. And that's not from nobody else could do this. That's just, this is what we've chosen because we love it, and I don't know if I could live without it.
Sometimes I try to remind her. Somebody told me this whenever I was in training. He said, "You will love this job, but it will not love you back." And that stuck with me. And it's like, man, like, just leave that crap there is what I want to tell her all the time. But I know that sometimes I'm the only outlet that she's got.
And I try to not let the things out in places that I shouldn't. There's a lot that I carry around with me, and it is nearly impossible for me to leave the job at work because it's so much a part of who I am. And I know that to a point, we got to leave the job at work. That's part of it. You got to keep your family life safe and healthy. And I absolutely believe that. But I also believe that for me to be the person I am at work, I have to truly love it. And if as much as I truly love it, it becomes part of my identity, who I am on an everyday basis. If somebody calls me off duty, I don't take it as I'm not on duty. It's not my responsibility. It's if somebody calls me, and they have, when I'm at home, when I'm at, whatever, at the gym, they will be in an ambulance taking care of a patient, and they will want to bounce something off me. They'll have me, I will hear them on speakerphone. Hey, can you look up this dose for me? Can you this? Can you that? What do you think about this? Now, we trained on this last week. And I want that. I love that I am a safe place for people to come and ask questions and opinions and whatever. I absolutely love to be that person for people because I know how valuable it was for me to have those people. Sometimes it's when I am at the gym with him and we don't have a whole lot of those opportunities. And he's like...
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. Like,
I feel your pain.
How is his deep sigh? Does he have a pretty good deep sigh?
Yes. The eye roll.
Today I didn't pull my headphones out of my ears one time.
At the gym.
Shoved them in there and...
We didn't speak at the gym.
Got to work.
It's interesting though when you guys truly put it out on paper. You guys entered in this relationship with your boxes already so full. With your background in EMS and all the trauma and the calls and the experiences you had, the experiences with your brother, Cory, with you and, having 2 kids already, getting a Purple Heart, your experience and your stress with the factory, going into law enforcement. You guys were already pretty close to the edge, and you're like, hey, you want to combine your shit show with my shit show?
I see your dysfunction, and I'll raise you mine.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what's interesting to me is, how well you guys have just not pushed each other over the edge when you guys were already just...
Nobody else will keep either of us. We are it.
But I do want to talk about your history in the military and kind of how it shaped you. What was your reasoning? Tell me a little bit about your experience while you were there.
Man, so I joined the Army because if I didn't join the Army, it was good. It was good for me. I didn't grow up in a really good home, contrary to, my grandpa was a deputy for a long time, but after a while he decided that he was arresting people for the same things that he was doing. So he was like, well, I'm just going to go and get out of here. He had a bad drinking problem or whatever. So, but anyways, so I was raised by 2 drug addicts and I had to get out of there. So that was what I did. I disconnected my entire childhood and went to the Army. And I mean, I came home a lot, but I got married once before at a really young age, and I just was like, man, I just want to have some kids. I want to break this cycle. So I did. And I think I did. I know I did. But I mean, I couldn't see myself, falling in the same trap of everybody else. I mean, everybody else back home still doing things that they were doing before. I've got one close friend that I kept from high school, and he's successful. And that's it. I had to, like I said, I had to get away from home to really kind of establish who I was as a person. So, did the Army thing. Went to Korea for a year. That was different. I don't like much rice. I don't like to eat a lot of rice. But I was terrified of getting in trouble, so I didn't do all the things that all the soldiers did in Korea. I didn't go out and get drunk all the time. I didn't blow my money. I just kind of, I think Hulu was just popping off back then. So I streamed a lot of shows, watched a lot of paranormal activity stuff, just weird stuff. Because I didn't have anything to do, and I didn't want to be out in town doing the things that other people were doing. Seeing a little bit of the countryside, I did that stuff. learned my job really well, and got out of Korea, went to Oklahoma, so I wasn't too far away from home. Far enough that somebody can't just pop in, but close enough I can get home if there's an emergency. So did that for 2.5 years. Then got orders to go to Alaska. And at that time, my oldest boy was he wasn't born yet, but he was close. So went up to Alaska, tried to get my orders changed. They're like, no, we really need you. So I was like, well, I'm going to war. So I went to Afghanistan. I was there for 10 months. I got there a little late. Caught up with the guys. Worked in the battalion headquarters for a little bit, and then they're like, hey, we think we got a spot for you down here on line company with the infantry. So I went down there, worked with those guys, tried to do the best I could. I was a forward observer, so in an infantry platoon, there's one forward observer for the platoon. He calls in, directs mortars, artillery, helicopters, airplanes, drones, that stuff. So I went down there, did that in 2011. I was getting ready to go home. Come home. My oldest boy had just been born. He was born on Halloween while I was over there. So, of course, then self-preservation kicks in. You're like, man, my gosh, gotta just get I gotta make it to Christmas. I was going home over Christmas, and gotta make it to Christmas. So I made it to Christmas. But 2 days before my roommate was supposed to go home on leave, he got killed. Stepped on an IED. Him and my lieutenant both stepped on IEDs. I think my lieutenant Calvin stepped on the first one, and then lieutenant stepped on the second one. And like both of them, like Calvin's screaming as he gets on the helicopter. Lieutenant's looks about dead as he's getting loaded up on the helicopter. Calvin dies from some internal bleeding and stuff that was going on back in Kandahar. Lieutenant takes 450 units of blood and lives. They had to call back and say, hey, what's his blood type? Because he has so much blood in him. They put out a big message on the speaker there at Kandahar Airfield. Said, hey, if you're X, Y, and Z blood type, whatever, come on down, give some blood. We really need it. So, but he made it, but it wasn't, and he's still alive. He's amputated, real super high. But he's living a good life now. So got out of the Army. Well, went back to Alaska, got out of the Army in 2014, and I must just start doing some factory work.
You got a Purple Heart as well, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, my memory escapes me. In September, so Calvin got killed November 12th, 2011. So first big mission before we moved, we ended up moving, taking over another battalion's area. We were doing a clearing operation. It was going to be like a week long. Get there, air assault in, just get set down out in the middle of the desert, and we walk into this town. Horrible, suck fest, like 3 days worth of water. Well, you carry a radio, so you need like 3-ish days worth of batteries. So I don't know, it's pretty heavy. So we were getting ready to bed down for the night. We were trying to find a place we could sleep. So usually what we do is we just go find a family and say, hey, we're gonna pay you some money and take your house for the evening. Well, whenever we talked to this kid, he's like, well, I gotta go ask my granddad and my dad. Well, there's Taliban. So he went out and tipped off Dad and Grandpa and whoever else, and whatever, they start shooting at us. No big deal. then I don't know. It remains unclear what was fired at us, but what was fired at us or whether it was an IED. I don't know. There's some word that might have been an IED, but there was also a word that there was a big recoilless rifle out there. So I don't know. We stepped on something. We were doing a map check. We were meeting up with the lieutenant. So I was with the platoon sergeant. So there's nobody's gonna don't hate on me for this, but they're like the 5 most important people in a platoon are the platoon leader, the platoon sergeant, the radio operator, the forward observer, the medic, and the weapons squad leader. Well, everybody but the medic took some shrapnel. I took I probably was injured the least out of everybody else, but took a small piece of shrapnel in my neck. So yeah, we were pretty much combat ineffective after that. So we got medevaced, and then our buddies finished the rest of the mission. They got pretty messed up. They combined with another platoon and finished the mission. And from what I hear, it was pretty crappy. It was horrible. Like, guys were stepping on IEDs. It was just bad week for the Bobcats and the Rage platoon. But it was that was it. Yeah, it sucked.
I'm guessing, obviously, with your upbringing, or maybe lack of, you were pretty resilient to start with. What was it like losing your roommate, Calvin?
Man, so that kid, whenever I got there, I was a sergeant whenever I got down that platoon, and so, but I told myself, I was like, man, I don't have nothing to prove to anybody. But him and we were roommates. He's a radio operator. Bunk mates, real close together. Whatever, he helped me with stuff, I helped him. Dude always had like the best attitude in the world. Like it was, and I think he before he got killed, he'd been promoted to team leader, and he's just a good kid. His never moaned or groaned or complained about anything. It was just like, and even more, as it got closer time for me to go home, it's like, man, what are we doing this dumb stuff for? Like, because I didn't really, I'm not gonna say the war is like, it was all for nothing, and I'm not gonna, because that's not the case. That's not what I believe in. But like, of all people, like we could have left that kid back so he could make it home. At least to see his family. His family really relied on him a lot. He'd send money back home. He had some younger brothers, and I think he had a younger brother. He was and he had a couple other brothers that were in the Army too. And so he really helped his mother out, and it was just, it was sad. Especially whenever you put him on the helicopter and he's, grabbing for your hand, screaming and whatever. But we were all, I don't know. There was a lot of guys that did a lot of good work that day. Nothing, can't take anything away from them. But it was kind of a blow because, he was always positive. It's like, man, the good die young, unfortunately. But
when you guys first started dating and you guys talked about that,
I had to ask him. We didn't talk about that. I innocently asked him what the scar on his neck was. And he looked at me and he kind of laughed. And he goes, you want to know the real story or you want me to make something up? And I was like, I think I want to know the real story. And he's like, I just got some shrapnel on my neck. And I took that as, yeah, we'll talk about that later. It's fine. We'll talk about that later. So we didn't go into it. We did not talk about that. I have never sat him down and said, what did you do? What did you go through? Tell me how it felt. I've never done that. When I met him, I think we both recognized that each other was in a pretty dark place for multiple reasons. And we did not grill each other on anything. We kind of immediately became each other's support system. We recognized in each other that we were a safe place to put our feelings for now. And you never know when you meet somebody if they're going to be the one. But with him, he was always very upfront and honest with me and about everything. And there was no games, there was no doubting, and that was about everything. That wasn't about like our romantic relationship. That was about his job, his kids, his ex-wife. When you meet somebody that's divorced, oh boy. Well, he told me the first night that we spent time together, he said, she's a good mom. She's always been a good mom. She loves the boys and she takes really good care of them. Good. But it's hard when you're hanging out with somebody and they're talking about that stuff. But we were very serious pretty quickly. So when it came to the Army in the past, I knew that wasn't a place that we could go early in our relationship. And when I first went to his apartment, I saw his Purple Heart on the wall. And I was like, is that yours? Yeah. And again, we moved on. We didn't talk about it. And it took several years for us to get probably through me knowing most of that stuff. Because I think it was just, for me, it was just a very, very deep respect of who he is as a person and what it's taken to bring him to the point that he was at when we met. And I knew there was a lot of layers and there was a lot of factors and there was things that I would learn if he trusted me with them. But I wasn't going to, it would be almost disrespectful for me to try to pry into what it took to make him the man that he was when we met. And that's kind of the way that we conducted our relationship. And he didn't grill me on things in my past either. And then when I was ready to share things with him, I did. There was a lot of stuff early in our relationship. He would talk in his sleep a lot. Some of it was really funny. I'd tell him the next morning. He's like, I did not. There was a couple of different times that, he was probably living in a different place, time, flashback type situation. Never anything crazy, but definitely things that I knew were just part of who he was, and I wasn't going to make a big deal about it or ask him what he was talking about or what would you say in that dream. It was just, I wanted to be the person that earned a place in his life. And I knew that to be that person, I needed to just respect everything that he was and let him learn to trust me to be able to share that stuff with me. Sometimes he would start talking about stuff as he fell asleep, and it would kind of be, and he would just fade off in the middle of a sentence, and I'd be like, I was almost about to learn what happened. And it was stuff that I remember when I finally found out who his roommate was. I looked him up on Facebook. I Googled him, and you can find stuff about him. You can find the story. You can find what happened. And his lieutenant. I was very interested, but I didn't ever ask, so what happened? What's his name? Where does he live? What do you do? And he has a very, very unique story. And I found that story. And when he first told me that it took 450 units of blood, I was like, no, I didn't. That's not true. Because I thought, that's not medically possible. But it did. That man took more blood than I've ever heard of anybody taking and living.
It's a record.
It is a record. And can you share anything about him or no?
Nick Vogt. Yeah, he was. So he came to our weird story. So he came to our platoon. He was like a brand new lieutenant, straight out of Ranger School. Good dude, like absolutely wonderful dude. Whenever Chandler was born, whenever my son was born, he no, it's fine. Whenever he was born, he was the first one in to come in and congratulate me. Just a genuine dude. So the day before, we got sent on some like witch hunt. I don't remember what it was. Anyways, we got sent on some witch hunt, and it was before our big mission. And I was like just jokingly, I was like, "Hey, sir, let's go out and get our purple heart. Let's go out and get you a purple heart today." And I was like, "Oh." And then the next day, I'm like, "Oh my god." So that was pretty bad. It was, I think, how we'd went and I think there was some I think it was an IED in place or something, and we went out to do something. I don't know if the dude had gotten killed, and we went out to do some stuff, to do some assessments or whatever on the guy. I don't remember. I think they might have been watching him from a camera, and he wound up getting killed. But I don't know. We found an aluminum round from a mortar, so it's I don't know. It's got a little parachute on it, and it hollowed out. We're nobody really knew what it was, but he's like, "Well, I'll put it in my backpack." I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get you that purple heart today." And it was an expended aluminum round that had just burnt out, and just landed somewhere. So we're like, "Well, we don't want the bad guys get that to make a bomb out of." So, but I don't think anybody's ever known that we talked about him getting a purple heart the day before. It was horrible. So that is horrible to think like that.
Yeah, but that's the jokes that you make.
Yeah,
in
That's
those
part of it.
situations.
Yeah.
The Gary Sinise Foundation built a house for him and his family, and
That's badass.
I remember when again, it wasn't something he told me. I Googled it. I searched him because I was very interested in who was a part of his life before, and I kept thinking, well, if I figure out what happened to them, maybe that'll help me figure out what happened to him and where he was, and I found a couple of different times where his name was mentioned and different things with him, and it wasn't about him being mysterious and anything. It was just about, I know that
You're inquisitive.
I am.
I know you're an
I am.
inquisitive person. So even the fact that you told me you had the wherewithal to, to him respect that boundary, I still know you, and you're just but I gotta know.
I really and I have a self-protective mechanism too, because we've all been hurt in relationships, and he's the first man that has that things have obviously haven't gone poorly with. So when I meet him, I gotta know if he's going to hurt me, because at that point when we met, I had been single for quite a while and doing my own thing, and I didn't want to be with somebody that was going to mess that up, because I was at the happiest place that I had been in a while when we met, as far as relationships go, because I was single and I was doing my own thing and building myself. And I was getting to a point where I was starting to believe in myself a little bit. And when I met him, I did feel an instant connection with him, and we did have a pretty much immediate mutual respect for each other. Just, I think, who we are as people. And but I knew that I needed to give him the time to trust me before we went there. So it took a couple of years before we got through what I think is probably most of the details. But there's also a part of me that understands that that's who he was before me, and there's been a lot of versions of me. And he doesn't know all the details of everything, every version that I've been in the past. And I'm never going to know all the details of every version that he was before. And that's okay to me. Not because I just don't want to know, but because I know that it took a lot of difficult versions of him to be who he is today. It took a lot of tough versions of me. And I think that that respect that I have for him is a big part of what keeps our relationship as sacred, I think, as it is, because there's nobody on the top side of the planet that I trust more or I respect more than him. Period.
Walk me through probably one of the most influential nights of your life that led you to be truly sitting here right now with him, with the wreck of your brother.
Oh, yeah, I would have never met him if it wasn't for that night.
It's crazy when you really think about it in the long game like that.
And I kind of, this is how I talk to friends and coworkers and different things. I have shelves in my mind, and I put things in boxes where they need to be on those shelves. Not because I want to suppress them, but because when they're there, I can take them out and deal with them when I'm able to. But I can't take those things out and spread them all over the floor all the time. So the night that brought me to EMS is a big box, and I keep it closed because that's the place it needs to be, for the most part. There is one group that I talk to, and I tell them my story. It's the Young Traffic Offenders Program in Kansas City. I speak for them. And I've done that for quite a while, and I go and I tell my story, and I have a slideshow that I do, and I call it One Person's Perspective on Life After Trauma. And when I talk to them about that, I go in and I say, I want to stress this is my perspective. This is what I have been through. This is my perspective after it, and I cannot tell you how it's going to be for you if something life-altering happens to you or your family. I can tell you what it looks like for me, and I can tell you what it looks like for some of my family members. But I can't tell everybody what life's going to be like after a trauma like I went through. That night I was living. I was probably about an hour from where my brother lived at the time, and he had gone to. He had a couple appointments that day, and he was going to come by my house on his way out of town. He was going to stop and see me. He was 17 years old at the time, and he had just bought a really fast motorcycle. He was at a high point in his life. He was super, super healthy, physically fit. He had gone to state wrestling. He was the captain of the football team. He had prettiest girlfriend. He had things going. He was a popular kid. He was good looking, charismatic, all the things. And when he bought that motorcycle, my family knew that something was going to happen, but we just didn't know when. We didn't know how bad. He drove like a jerk. And my family was not in a very, we had a lot of family problems at the time. My parents had recently gone through a divorce, and there was a lot that we weren't in a great place as a family then. And he was on his way to my house. He was doing, he says 120. He doesn't know exactly what speed he was going when he crashed, but he thinks that he maybe got it shut down to 60 or 70 before he impacted the car. He had topped a hill. There was a little dip in the highway. Topped a hill that he couldn't see down in the dip. There was a car not parked. There was a car at a stop waiting for a car in front of them to turn. And the car in front of them was waiting for an oncoming car to get by. And so when he saw them, he tries to shut it down real fast. He had texted me when he left town and headed to my place, which should have taken about 15 minutes of a normal speed. And he had texted me and said, leaving town, be there in 4 minutes. And I knew he's going to drive like a jerk. Just whatever, be careful. And he came over that hill, and that car was stopped, and he couldn't get slowed down. And so he tried to split he tried to ride the center line, tried to get between the cars, and the car that was in his lane, he clipped the bumper with his right leg. So his right leg caught the bumper of the car just below his knee, and it tore his right leg off completely just below the knee. That part of the leg from the knee down was left unseen. And that initial impact tore his leg back, and it flipped his body and what was left of his motorcycle sideways. It tore his right leg back, and it tore him from his groin to his hip on his right side, and it tore him open. And then when he flipped sideways, the oncoming car that he was going to try to split between hit him broadside on his left side. So when he came down on the pavement, he had open femur and tibia fractures on his left side. He had an open book pelvis fracture. He was missing that part of his right leg, and he had organs that were torn, not all the way loose, but a lot of disruption trauma up in his abdominal cavity. His helmet had come off, but he did not, by a true miracle, he did not have a head injury. He was awake right immediately afterwards, and he was repeating my dad's phone number over and over. And there was a lady that called my dad, who immediately called me. My brother was grabbing onto her hand, and he said, "Pray for me, pray out loud where I can hear you." So she held his hand, she called my dad called me. And when my dad called me, my dad doesn't call me very often. And when I saw his number, I just felt this, I just knew that it had happened. And I got up, as I was answering the phone, I got up and I started putting my shoes on. And he said, "Jackson's been in a crash." And he was keyed up. He was upset. And he said, "Jackson's been on a crash." And I said, "Where is he?" And he told me the intersection, which was just a few minutes from my house. And I said, "Is he alive?" And he goes, "I think so. They said his legs are really mangled up." I said, "Okay, I'll be there in just a few minutes." He's like, "Stay on the phone with me. Talk to me. Tell me what you see." When I was pulling up to the scene, a helicopter was landing. They had called on the way to the crash. The details that they had gotten of the crash, they called the aircraft pretty quickly. And the helicopter was landing. I got on scene, and I remember feeling like I was outside of my body, like I was just functioning. And everybody has different stress responses, and everybody responds differently on to different traumatic events. And I just functioned. It was just an autopilot. I walked up, I parked off the side of the road, and I walked up. I could see him. He was probably, 20 yards away from me by the time I got up close. And a lady grabbed my arm and she said, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "That's my brother. I need to get up to my brother." And she said, "Oh no, honey." I said, "What can you tell me?" And she just shook her head. She didn't know anything. She was a bystander, but they all thought he was dead. After they intubated him, the flight nurse told me that his the medic initially that got on scene had cut his shorts on his right side, and his pelvis just fell open like a book. And the flight nurse had reached up into his body cavity and grabbed a hold of his femoral artery with her hand to try to stop it. He said it was like shaking a pop can up, and it just sprayed everywhere, just sprayed blood. So everybody that saw anything remotely close thought he was just dead. Rightfully so. They got him to the hospital, the one that I worked at. I was not working there yet. I was not in EMS or healthcare at all at the time. And they got him up to that hospital alive, again, by some miracle. Everything that needed to work that day worked. That hospital had just gone level 1 that day, which is another...
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. I was just he was their first level 1 trauma patient, and everything had been put in place so recently for them. And they said, "Hey, we can take him to research," and then they went. I was about an hour from that hospital, so I started making phone calls, and that is what I did when I stood there and watched him take care of my brother. I could see him. I could see them working on him. I was close. And they wouldn't let me get up to him. I said, "I just want to tell him I love him. I just want him to know that I love him." And they were like, "We can't let you up there. We can't let you up there." Nobody would make eye contact with me. Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would. And I know they were busy. I know everyone was busy. I remember thinking that day, and I was in all kinds of a state of shock, mentally. But I remember thinking, I would like to do that job, and I would like to take care of the families too. And I know that's not always practical. You cannot always take care of families on scenes. But I remember thinking, I just need somebody to talk to me. Please talk to me. And it wasn't like a frantic, desperate grabbing at people, causing disruption. I just wanted somebody to look me in the eyes and tell me the truth. If he was dead, I wanted somebody to look me in the eyes and tell me he was dead. I wanted a little bit of communication on that scene. And I watched him take off. And I stood there, and they handed me stuff after they left, and people started bringing me stuff and brought me his helmet and his phone, his keys, or whatever he had, his shoes. And I had his shoes. I remember I was squeezing him so tight, and I was watching the helicopter take off. And a lady said, "Are you going to be okay to drive?" And I turned and looked at her, and I was very practical. I didn't mean to be rude. And I said, "What choice do I have?" And she was, "Okay, be careful." I said, "Okay." I was weirdly put together. And I drove away from that scene, and I met a friend in town that rode with me. I had called somebody to make sure that I would have somebody take care of the cows that night because we were in calving season and I needed the calves checked. And I needed a phone charger because my phone was going to die. And I called my mom and I called my dad and I called my sister. I called my sister and I said, we've got a situation and it's not good. That's what I told her. That was the most put together night that I probably had through the whole incident. But that was the beginning of me deciding that I wanted to be in EMS. And when that next year I went to EMT class, I got my EMT license, and I didn't know where I was going to fit, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. And I finally got my job at the hospital. When I interviewed for that job, I remember her asking me, why here? Why do you want to work here? Because she knew my story. And I sat there, and I'm not advocating for this in a job interview, but I just stared at her, and I got little tears in the corner. I didn't cry, but I had tears, and I said, because I need to work here. I don't know if that's really something you should hire people on. Maybe they were desperate. I don't know. And I said...
It's rock solid reasoning to me.
Yeah, it was fine.
Cuz.
And I said, there's something within me that needs to find some purpose in this field. And I gathered up all of my pieces, and I was able to put them into a lot of other people and a lot of other patients. And I surprised myself at how well those pieces fit into that field. So,
we had a lot of good times there.
oh man, so many. My life was threatened many times there.
Cory, how has, we'll use your military experience, and your childhood and military experience played a role in what you do now? How has it formed your thought processes and the way you go about things in your career now?
I think I'm able to kind of show a little bit of compassion, to some of the people that.
Are you gonna try and tell me, do you have emotions right now?
No,
Okay,
but
okay.
hey, listen, I get it. Like if your car's not registered, like what are you gonna do? You're gonna pay your registration ticket so you can keep going to work. You're not gonna go get your car registered. So why am I gonna compound the problems that you're having? But why am I going to add more to your cup that's already overflowing with stuff that, and it's just like little things like that, man. If somebody tells me like, yeah, we're still going to jail, but like, hey, man, you're the night, like you gave me some dignity, yeah, you're taking me to jail, and I'm going to have to face the music later, but thanks for, restoring my dignity. I don't want to. There's people that need to go to jail. There's people that need to go to prison. There's people that don't need to be out walking around amongst everybody, but most everybody that I interact with, they're good people, man.
Well, it's interesting when you guys think about it, because you do the same job, essentially. You're both public servants. People love to see you. People hate to see you.
Yeah.
But you do the same job. It's weird when you think about it that way.
Yeah. But, so at the local convenience store, my mom had this, it was like a baby blue Ford Tempo. It was probably like an 80-something model. This is like maybe like pretty pushing the year 2000. And she couldn't afford to get the car registered. So back then, man, they'd handwrite the temp tags, just change the date on them. And she would go up there, she'd just burn off a bunch of copies of just stupid things. Like she'd just put a piece of tape over it and just make copies. Man, we was poor. And, it was, so like I get it. I get why people, go to, don't want to be harassed by the cops, like, just because they're trying to get by. Man, I get it. So I try to show those people a little bit of grace, and I don't agree with a lot I don't share the same opinion of some guys I work with. That's fine. That's okay. But at the end of the day, it's still going to keep ticking, whether we write that ticket or not. And they're people, and they have real problems just like everybody else. And just because I don this uniform every day, it doesn't make me any better than you. It doesn't make me have any of my struggles aren't any different than yours. This is a job. It's not who I am. Like, I'm Tabitha's husband. I'm a dad, and then I do this job.
Tabitha's husband's a full-time job anyway.
Yikes.
Full-time with part-time pay. But
you know what though? That's a really, really healthy way to look at it, and we've talked about that on the podcast before about people that get so wrapped up and all they are the job. Well, then at some point you got to stop doing the job.
Listen, I was going to wear
it forever.
I was going to wear a T-shirt. I was going to support my local barber shop, and she's like, "That's what you're going to wear." So
no, I didn't. I did not say anything. I was like,
yeah, I was just going to wear this free T-shirt that I got. Like, so I put on this and get met at the door. Oh, say you're a cop without saying you're a cop. like F you, man. But yeah, and I mean, I'll never forget. People would come try. My mom used to write a lot of hot checks back in the day. Them suckers were rubber, but because I understand why nobody takes checks anymore. But she used to write. She was always in trouble for writing bad checks, and it was. I don't feel like it was ever. It was out of. It was what she knew. It was all she knew how to do to survive, to make stuff work for us. Her and my dad were off and on quite often, and I mean, like clockwork. Somebody go out on a bender right before the holidays. It's like, gee, thanks. We're doing this again. And it, and that even carried on into my adult life, and I don't know. I mean, maybe we could have done a little bit better at being there, but man, all I wanted to do was just protect my kids from that stuff, and I just want them to have a good example, and I want them to be able to be kids, and they're not going to be able to be kids if they've got to worry about adult problems. So
he won't tell you my perspective on that because he doesn't see it in the light I do. But the way that he always portrayed his mom to me was always respectful. He was honest about what happened, all the things that had gone on, but he was always respectful about her and his dad. And he never showed his boys all of the bad. We don't talk about it around the boys. Not because it's some big secret, but just because it's not information that needs to go into their futures. And he was still able to. They knew the grandsons. They didn't spend a lot of time with them, but part of breaking a cycle is not taking it into the future with you. That's the biggest part of it. And for him, he just didn't give it all of that emotional energy to let it own him and define him. And he hasn't given it the emotional energy to let it define anything about who his sons are. And they don't know. They'll never know that their grandparents were what they were and did what they did. And they don't have to. And those people did the best that they knew how to do with the resources that they had. Could they have done better? Yeah, sure, probably. Anybody can. We're all given, resources to a point, and they could have done better. They could have done better by him. But he is respectful to them, and he showed them empathy and compassion and was still able to maintain a relationship with them. And his mom was very sick most of her life, too. She was a type 1 diabetic.
Whatever the bad one is.
Type 1 diabetic.
Shots.
And
this is a non-medical person.
The
bad one.
That real bad one.
The sugars.
She was.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember being 12 or 13. Her sugar tank because she also she like to sleep a lot, like take sleeping pills, and she wouldn't take care of herself, and
he would save her life.
And I would
literally.
One time I can remember this. We didn't have any syrup. We had honey, and I like got her in a headlock and squirted all this honey in her mouth, and it gets all over her hair, all over her face, and she comes to. She comes to, and she's like, I don't even fucking like honey, and yeah, like like I just saved your life. This is the thanks I get. I don't even like honey.
And he was a kid.
Yeah,
he was a kid.
Yeah, so but
yeah. It's interesting when you guys, just especially with you two, you look back on your past. And to a layperson, I'd be like, I don't want you traumatized, crazy motherfuckers helping me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blame you.
But with that, it also almost makes you the most qualified. As fucked up as that is to say.
The respect and compassion that we both have for human life has come from a place of very, very deep hurt for both of us in many different ways and layers. And it is so important for me to give dignity and compassion and empathy and respect to the patients. And I'm talking even the bad ones. And I have been mistreated and hit and spit on and cussed at and called all kinds of things. And then I have people that tell me, you're really good at your job. Don't ever change. And that stuff, that makes it worth it. Because we are able to improve the quality of life for other people. Whether it be people that he stops that are having a terrible day and he shows them just a little bit of grace and makes their day better. Or people that I take care of that just had a really bad day and it's not a serious call and it's not billable and it's not much, but their life was a little bit better because I got to be in it for a little bit. And that makes the job worth it.
What advice would both of you have to first responder couples new into relationships to get to the place where you guys are? It's not easy, clearly. But what advice would you have for them to get the type of love and bond that you guys truly have?
If you want to see each other, get on the same schedule. If you don't, then don't.
We have I know I've been harping on respect, but it's a big thing. We have a constant respect for each other. And don't meet every situation with an emotional response. If it does not merit an emotional response, don't meet it with an emotional response. That is something that I am still working on. I don't have that mastered.
You what? No.
And just show some grace and some patience. And you have to decide if that person means enough to you to put in that work. Because they don't owe you anything. You meet them and they don't owe you anything. You don't come into this relationship deserving anything. You both chose the relationship. So take some accountability for your own actions and your own behavior. And don't give that person more trauma and more dysfunction and more hurt. Don't set expectations for them that they don't deserve to meet. Don't make them pay for your past trauma. Don't make them pay for sins that they haven't committed. Let them be your partner instead of expecting them to give you something you think you deserve. I don't know if that's exactly the way I mean that, but
wash their pants,
wash
their uniforms.
So much of my laundry.
No, just picking up the slack. Like, there's gender defined roles. Not anymore because it's 2022, but just I've been listening to this other podcast, and it has nothing to do with EMS, fire, nothing like that. No, I mean, I don't, or copping or killing or anything. And it's actually like, but it's a guy, and he's he's like a professional rodeo athlete, and he's like, oh, my wife told me one time, like, you're really getting down on yourself, and you're showing an awful lot of grace to your horse, but you're not showing any grace to yourself. And I was like, I'll be darned. So just, I think, give yourself a little bit of, cut yourself some slack, cut your partner some slack. I'm not very good at cutting a lot of slack because, like, you're home. Like, let's do home stuff. Like, that mountain of laundry. That's her joke. She always says, like, I'm like, well, what do you want to do today? Oh, I figured we just, like, do some laundry. And I'm like, and she does it, and it pisses me off.
But it needs to be done.
But it does, yeah, because nobody likes to wear smelly, wrinkly clothes. So
I'll bring mine over then.
yeah, well, yeah. The other day, I'll have to be honest with you, I started this, like, I threw some clothes back in the dryer, put it on steam refresh so the boys wouldn't have some wrinkled ass clothes, and, like, I did that. I think it ran all day on steam refresh. Like, it would turn off and then, like, turn back on.
If he was trying to send me a message,
no, it wasn't to send her a
I
message.
didn't get it.
Because I let it do that, like, all day, and then she folded them, like, the next day, wrinkled.
Maybe I'll send him a message.
But no, just do your part, man. Just do your
A big
shit.
thing that I need to work on. This is not advice that I'm giving because I need to work on it. I give the people that I work with a huge amount of compassion and empathy and grace. I meet them in a very, very respectful point, and I should save some of that for him. I should save some of the way that I treat the people that I work with, and I should take it home and I should treat him that way more often. He doesn't deserve to get my leftover emotions just because I have poured everything that I have into the people that I work with. He doesn't deserve that. And I need to save some of the respect and the empathy and the compassion and the intuition and the everything else. I need to save those skills that I use at work, and I need to take them home.
Corey, final thoughts?
I'm just happy to be here.
Just here so you won't get fined.
Yeah, no. Like I said earlier, something stuck with me, and you're gonna love this job, but it's not gonna love you back. They're gonna it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're sacking groceries. It doesn't matter if you're flipping hamburgers. It doesn't matter if you're putting shingles on roofs, shoveling horse shit, doing whatever. Like, they're gonna keep taking as much as they can for as little as they want. If you allow them to continue to take from you, they're gonna take as much as they can get from you. So, you gotta take care of yourself, and you gotta take care of the things that are important to you, because that place was running and humming before you got there, and it's still gonna keep on taking whenever you're done. So go home and take it off. Take the shirt off, take the boots off. Kind of leave work at work where you can. I think it's good to get home and talk about things. I deal with things a lot differently than my wife deals with things. I try to dissociate myself from, like, the human aspect of the bad things that I see. I don't know if it's healthy or not. That remains yet to be seen. But there's. I try not to get too attached, and I think that helps me be able to continue to do what I do. There's some sucky parts of the job, and but overall, it's a good job. It's a good, noble career, and just if you want to see each other, get on the same schedule. No, it's a lot of give and take. like I said, they're going to keep calling and asking for more all the time. And at some point, you just got to say no. I try to help her protect her time with the family, because in summertime she was humping. She was, good grief. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that still don't believe that I'm married. Which, but it's, you gotta defend them. You just gotta, don't go and bitch and moan to your buddies about what your partner is or isn't doing. I guess you probably need somebody to talk to about it every once in a while, but still at the end, after you say all those things, you get it all off your chest, be like, but she's a really good person, or he's a really good person. She's doing it for the right reasons. So,
Tab.
I'll give a little bit of contrast to that, because we do deal with things in very, very different ways. And I think something that I've tried to learn is if somebody else deals with something differently than you, it's not for you. Make sure that you respect people's processes. We've learned each other's processes are very different, and that's okay. And give yourself grace to get through things and process things. Lean into your grief sometimes. Feel it. You can't bottle it up. You can't put it on a shelf forever. I put it on a shelf until I'm able to deal with it. I take it out in pieces, but don't leave it there forever, and find the way that works and deal with it that way. Don't try to take somebody else's advice as exactly how it should work for you. I feel things differently than he does, and for those reasons, I'm able to help other people with their processes that he doesn't understand, and he's able to meet other people in places that I don't understand. And that's okay. Be patient with that, and don't expect that you're just supposed to know how it works, because you don't. All of us in this room deal with things differently, and that is okay. That is the beauty of the field that we are in, because there is beauty. There is true beauty in the field that we are in. And the value that I have for human life doesn't change. No matter come or go as it may, whoever I'm working with, whatever the day brings, whatever calls I run, it does not, the way that I feel about humanity does not change. I respect it and I value it deeply. And just let each person that you come across process those things in their way, and help them through that if you can. Because when you help somebody else get through their process, you will find that you are actually helping yourself get through your process.
Jeremy?
Pass. What? I get to be you for today.
You don't look as good as me.
What? A face for radio and a voice for silent movies? I've been waiting like a week to say that.
I like it.
It's a good line.
Every now and then I get a gem, little nugget.
Once every like 18 episodes.
Yeah. Well, law of averages. No, I just, yeah. And we didn't even get to the leadership portion.
Guess she has to come back.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I just, everything that you guys have been through and then coming tonight and sharing, I really appreciate it. And valuable lessons for everybody. Not the least of which is, being first responders and having a healthy, stable relationship, because, that's few and far between. Yeah, just awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You guys have been my friends. You for a while. And it seems like with Corey, it's been for a while, just because I think I like it more than you anyway.
I don't blame you.
But I
blame you
think
at all.
even just with talking tonight, the level of respect I have for you as professionals, you as friends, and your marriage has just been reinforced and gotten so much stronger for me.
Thank you. That's a compliment. Thank you.
So you guys are doing it right.
Thank you.
So
If only we could get rich doing it.
Boy.
By
Yeah.
God.
Tabitha Cory, thank you. It's been awesome. Jeremy, what do you say at the? I don't pay attention to it. I don't
you done fucked up now.
I don't pay attention to the end part.
Come on, bro.
Shit. It came back to me.
Okay.
I don't do it regularly, so it's hard.
Oh, boy.
If you would spend more time paying attention while you're sitting back here to what's actually going on in front of the camera instead of playing on Facebook and your phone.
Listen, there's a lot to do back there. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Looks like a heavy job back there.
It is. There's a lot of buttons to push.
That's the problem. You need to stop pushing buttons. Everything is fine. It's set the way it is. Stop.
As we end every episode, if you guys are struggling, reach out. There are resources available. If you're in marriages, find people you look up to and talk with them and learn not necessarily even how to improve your marriage, but just grow it with your partner. If you're seeing somebody struggle, reach out. Be that first responder they need, not necessarily in uniform, but even just a friend too. As always, thanks for stopping by.